After returning from our trip, I asked Michael for a divorce. Just because I saved Riley instead of you? His tone carried a hint of helplessness. Yes. All right. He loosened his tie, his eyes showing a trace of fatigue. Think it through. We had known each other for 15 years and been married for 7. He was convinced I was just throwing a tantrum, but he wouldn't understand. Falling into the water was just the trigger. I could swim, and I swam back to shore myself. But in that moment, I suddenly realized that this marriage was just like that sea. Seemingly vast, but actually bone-chillingly cold. From now on, we would go our separate ways and find our own happiness. Just because I saved Riley instead of you? The living room lights fell on Michael as he rubbed his brow, smiling faintly. You want a divorce just for that? I nodded. Yes, I want a divorce. He leaned back into the sofa, relaxed. How many times have you asked for a divorce? Do you remember? I was stunned. He looked at me calmly. The 3rd time or the 4th? His tone was indifferent. Stop it. We've been together so long, Autumn. You can't leave me. I shook my head. No one is indispensable. Okay. The corner of his mouth twitched. Fine, don't regret it. I won't. I turned towards the bedroom, running into Riley coming out of the guest room. She held a glass of water, her face pale. Michael, I still feel a little dizzy. Her voice was soft. Can you pour me another cup of hot water? Michael didn't move, his gaze fixed on me. If it were before, I probably would have sneered and asked her if she had no hands or feet. But now, I just felt tired. I continued walking, but Riley gently tugged at my sleeve. Autumn, please don't misunderstand. Riley bit her lip timidly. Michael and I are just ordinary colleagues. I'm just an intern fresh out of school. I have no family or friends here. Yesterday I had a high fever and really had no choice but to ask Michael for help. I didn't expect to ruin your anniversary dinner. I'm really very sorry. I finally looked up. Oh, the intern who texts him at midnight saying she's scared. The intern who makes him wear the shirt you bought. The intern who always needs help when we're together. Are you an orphan? Since you know you're just an intern and not Mrs. Miller, did you eat the word boundaries for lunch and digest it? Riley froze, her eyes instantly reddening. She lowered her head, shoulders trembling slightly. Autumn. Michael stood up and handed her a tissue, his tone carrying his usual indulgence and helplessness. I know you're unhappy, but is it necessary to speak so harshly? Riley's tears fell silently. In the empty living room, only her suppressed gasps could be heard. A familiar cramp suddenly hit my stomach. I held onto the doorframe for a moment, then opened the wardrobe and started packing. Michael knocked twice on the door. Autumn? I didn't answer, folding my usual cashmere coat into the suitcase. His voice deepened. Just because of an outsider's words, you have to do this? The moment the zipper broke the silence, I heard the sound of shattering porcelain. Riley had knocked something over again. Opening the bedroom door, I saw Michael hurrying towards the guest room. This time, the thermometer broke. Just as he turned back to explain, I walked past the corner with my suitcase. The mirror in the entryway reflected my pale face. My stomach hurt badly, but my mind was unusually clear. I took out my phone and sent a voice message to my mother. Mom, I want to come home for a few days. As the elevator doors closed, the last thing I saw was Michael frozen in place, clutching the fever medicine. The moment the night wind hit my face, I pressed my cramping stomach and hailed a taxi. I went home and slept, waking up at 9 p.m. Turning on my phone, the first post on my feed was from Riley. What I fear most when sick is troubling others. Thank you for your care and company. Turns out even adults can have moments where they don't need to be strong. The picture was a glass on a windowsill, reflecting the blurry silhouette of a man pouring water for her. That shirt was the birthday gift I gave him last month. Just then, my phone screen lit up with an unread message from Michael. Does your stomach still hurt? I ordered porridge from Shengfeng Xuan for you. 7 full hours had passed, After keeping someone else company, he finally remembered me. I stared blankly at the chat background. The photo was still the aurora we took in Iceland during our honeymoon. We had promised to see the starry skies of the world together. For so many years, he had never changed it. My finger lingered on the screen for a moment, then I muted his notifications. Half an hour later, I went downstairs. My mother saw me. "Why are your eyes red?" "Slept too long, pressed on them," I whispered. "Rest more if you're tired," my mother said softly. "Michael is reliable after all. Knowing you have a bad stomach, he specially had someone deliver porridge. With so many years of feelings, he knows how to take care of you best. Mom, I've decided to divorce Michael." My mother's hand arranging flowers paused, a lily branch gently brushing her fingertips. "Why so suddenly? Did you argue over that intern again?" "Not because of her." I looked at the wedding photo on the living room wall. "It's just that I don't want to live in self-deception anymore." My mother put down the shears, her voice very soft. "But in these 7 years, you've been through so much. Last year, when your dad was hospitalized, he rushed back overnight to find specialists and stay by his side. Can these bonds be forgotten just like that?" "Mom," I interrupted calmly, "it's precisely because I remember those good times that I know even more clearly that the current him is no longer the Michael from before." My mother sighed softly and said nothing more, silently picking up the pitcher to add water to the vase. Amidst the sound of flowing water, she suddenly whispered, "When you were 18, he waited downstairs just to give you your favorite plum blossom cake. Now, how did it come to this?" I reached out to catch a water droplet falling from a petal. "Because when the plum blossoms wither, they shouldn't be forced to stay on the branch." Just then, my phone rang. It was my best friend, Jessica, asking me to meet at a quiet bar. "Go ahead, let your dad drive you." "That scumbag who ignores his wife for an outsider isn't worth your tears." My father was standing at the kitchen door at some point, the porcelain plate rattling. "Divorce, if you want. Dad will support you for life." 20 minutes later, I arrived at the bar. Jessica told me to wait in the booth first. I was looking down at the drink menu when I heard a familiar voice from the next booth. "Attorney Miller, didn't you say no work tonight? Why do you keep checking your phone?" "Got blocked." Michael's voice carried fatigue. "Who dares to block you?" "Who else?" He smiled bitterly. "That little ancestor at home." "Autumn?" His friend smiled knowingly. "Honestly, with Miss Autumn's temper, only you can tolerate her." "I chose her. What can I do?" Ice clinked in his glass. "I've spoiled her for so many years." "Why this time?" "She thinks I take too much care of Riley." "Just for that?" His friend was surprised. "Didn't you help Riley find a job because of her father?" "If you ask me, someone like Riley is indeed more sensible. Last time you had a cold, she specially made ginger tea and sent it to the law firm." I didn't listen any further and got up to walk to our booth. Just as I sat down, Jessica pointed at her phone screen. "Look at the workgroup chat. Riley posted a passive-aggressive update." The photo showed Michael's profile, captioned, "Grateful for the light met in the most helpless times." I was about to speak when Riley appeared at our table with a wine glass. "Autumn. What a coincidence." She smiled gently. "Heard you were here, so I came to offer a toast." "No need." I refused coldly. "I'm allergic to alcohol." "This plum wine has very low alcohol content." As she spoke, she suddenly slipped, splashing the entire glass of wine onto my arm. "Oh my!" she exclaimed, grabbing a napkin to wipe vigorously. "Let me clean it for you." The rough fabric scraped against my skin, and my allergic skin immediately broke out in a rash. "Stop!" Jessica swatted her away. "Don't you know Autumn is allergic to alcohol?" I was about to pull my hand back when Riley suddenly fell to the floor, her hand pressing onto broken glass, blood seeping out. "What happened?" Michael rushed over upon hearing the noise. Riley held up her bleeding hand, teary-eyed. "Michael, I accidentally spilled wine and wanted to help Autumn clean it." Michael glanced at her wound, then frowned at me. "She meant well. Why do you have to be like this?" "Attorney Miller might want to look at this." I showed my red and swollen arm. "This is her good intention?" His tone softened slightly. "She just doesn't understand these things." "Does not understanding mean she can splash wine on someone with allergies?" Jessica held up her phone. "Do you need me to replay the footage of her deliberately slipping?" Riley suddenly sobbed. "If Autumn is angry, I'll pay for the dry cleaning." "Pay?" I slowly poured the ice bucket onto my burning skin. "What you should be thinking about now is, if I go for an injury assessment, how long is the sentence for intentional injury?" "Autumn." Michael held my wrist. "That's enough." He turned to signal the manager. "Put this table on my tab and bring a fruit platter for Miss Riley to calm her nerves." "No need." I shook off his hand. "Save Attorney Miller's generosity for those who need it." I picked up my coat and said to Jessica, "Let's go." "Acting so high and mighty," someone muttered. Jessica took me to the hospital. The light in the emergency room was blindingly white. I leaned back on the cold chair receiving an IV drip. The swelling on my arm gradually subsided, but my heart felt like it was soaked in salt water, throbbing with pain. "I'm sorry, Autumn." Jessica handed me a cup of hot water. "I should have just pulled you away instead of engaging with Riley." "Why should I leave?" I looked at the needle in the back of my hand. "Just because she can act, the person in the wrong becomes right?" "Besides," I said softly, "I've decided to divorce Michael." Jessica was silent for a moment. "Honestly, Autumn, everyone thinks you're just saying it out of anger. After all, you've sacrificed so much for him." The liquid medicine dripped down the tube. I closed my eyes. Yes, sacrificed too much. The first time I met Michael was in the law school library. At that time, my ex-boyfriend had cheated me out of all my savings, and I couldn't even pay the last month's rent. I was curled up between the bookshelves, shivering and crying. He handed me a pack of tissues. "Need help?" Later, he helped me recover the debt and accompanied me to court. When the opposing lawyer was aggressive in court, he gently held my trembling hand. "Don't be afraid." Starting from that gesture, I fell in love with him, without hesitation. In the early days of his startup, I attended classes during the day and helped him organize case files at night. When we were poorest, we shared a cup of instant noodles, but he left the only egg for me. "When the firm gets on track, I'll fry you sunny-side-up eggs every day." He always said my smile was like winter jasmine in early spring, capable of melting all gloom. Until Riley appeared. She was a new intern at the firm, always wearing shirts washed until they were faded. The first time we met, she blushed and said, "Attorney Miller, I will work hard to become an excellent lawyer like you." At first, I also felt sorry for her poor background, even giving her a coat I hadn't worn much, but she always appeared when Michael and I were on dates. "Senior, I really have no idea about this case." "Senior, I don't understand what the client is saying." "Attorney Miller, I have a fever. Can you take me to the hospital?" Every time I expressed dissatisfaction, Michael was helpless. "She has no one to rely on. Isn't it good for us to help her more?" "Yes, help her. Help her to the point where, on my birthday, he left hurriedly because of a call from her. Help her to the point where, on our wedding anniversary, he accompanied her to see a client. Help her to the point where now I'm lying in the hospital on an IV drip and he's still protecting that helpless girl." "Autumn," Jessica asked softly, "can you really let go?" The medicine flowed into my veins, bringing a cold sting. Just like last month when my father had bypass surgery, I waited alone outside the operating room and called him 20 times. Later, I found out that day Riley accidentally lost an important document, and he helped her find it until late at night. When he replied at 3 a.m., "Just finished. Did Dad's surgery go well?" In that instant, I suddenly felt that, Maybe divorce isn't such a difficult thing after all. 2 weeks later, it was time for the monthly family dinner. My father and the Miller family had been friends for many years. Although I had decided to divorce, I didn't want personal matters to affect the friendship between the two families, so I arrived on time. I just didn't expect Riley to be there. There was a seat reserved for me next to Michael as usual, but I ignored it and walked straight to the opposite side of the table to sit. Riley came out of the kitchen with a fruit platter. Seeing this, she naturally sat next to him, in the seat that should have been mine. When I returned after handing my mother-in-law her favorite handmade incense, I found Michael had already moved to the seat next to me. Still angry? He leaned over, tapping his fingertips lightly on the table. It's been half a month. How long do you plan to keep up the Cold War this time? I calmly unfolded my napkin. Michael, you've already signed the divorce agreement. Don't you do this every time? He chuckled softly. Last time you tore it up, the time before that, you burned it. Want to try scattering it in the sea this time? I looked down to check messages on my phone. After the dishes were served, my mother-in-law smiled and turned the topic to us. Michael, Autumn, when do you plan to have a child? Mom even has the nursery ready. Riley softly chimed in. Attorney Miller is so excellent. A child like him would definitely be very cute. But raising a child is expensive now. Ordinary families really need to consider carefully. I put down my chopsticks and smiled. Miss Riley really cares about other people's business. It just so happens our group has set up a new employee childcare center. An intern like you will also be able to enjoy free childcare services in the future. Really? My mother-in-law looked at me with delight. This project is so thoughtful. The proposal has been approved by the board. My grandfather nodded. Autumn personally researched for 3 months, even planning the education fund. Several elders asked about the details of the child care center. Opposite me, Riley's knuckles gripping her chopsticks gradually turned white. After the meal, Michael stopped me on the terrace, turning his black screen phone around. Add me back when you're done being angry. He leaned against the railing, raising an eyebrow. I found it absurd. We're divorced, Attorney Miller. A qualified ex should disappear forever. Still speaking so prickly. He suddenly leaned in, trapping me between the railing and his arms. I'm going to Berlin on a business trip next week for a whole month. If you don't add me back now, I won't even have anyone to tell I'm safe when I land. Is that so? I raised my eyes to meet his gaze. Then it's a good opportunity for you to adapt in advance. After all, your life and death will have nothing to do with me in the future. I turned to leave, but he smoothly snatched the phone I was holding. Give it back! Stop fussing! He skillfully unlocked it with Face ID, tapping lightly on the screen. Do you really want to wait until I return to talk to me? Who will pick me up at the airport then? You can call Riley. I watched him coldly. Isn't she always just available? She's just a colleague, he chuckled. Picking up at the airport is a wife's job. Why should I pick you up? I took the phone back into my bag. This time next week, our only legal relationship will be ex-spouses. He suddenly laughed out loud as if hearing a childish joke. Last time at the Civil Affairs Bureau, who was clutching the agreement refusing to sign? Autumn? You don't even change your lines when arguing. The divorce cooling-off period takes 30 days. I didn't plan to let him know about this for now. So, who do you plan to have pick you up? The new assistant? Or Vice President Zhang, who always drives you home? He loosened his tie and sneered. I sent you next week's flight info. Dare not to come and I'll break your legs. I was about to retort when the terrace curtain was suddenly lifted by the wind. Riley stood there, timidly holding her phone. Can I also go to the airport to pick you up? I occasionally marveled at Riley. She always managed to appear from some corner just right when Michael and I were alone, joining the conversation incredibly naturally, as if born with some kind of radar. Michael frowned slightly. The company will arrange the airport pickup. What a coincidence. Her fingertips lightly touched the handle of her carry-on. I happen to be going to the airport to see off a client. If Autumn is busy. She lowered her head and pursed her lips before finishing, as if saying half a word more would be overstepping. I stared at the non-existent moisture on her eyelashes and suddenly laughed. "Since it's such a coincidence, I'll trouble you then." As I turned, Michael grabbed my wrist, familiar possessiveness surging in his eyes. "I want my wife to pick me up, not just anyone." My gaze swept over her slightly reddened eyes. "Are you sure? She's about to cry." "I take care of her only out of responsibility." He paused, then added, "I saved her instead of you last time because she would have drowned. My wife is such a good swimmer. Do I still need to abandon someone in danger?" He pulled me into his arms, his voice low. "Stop fussing. If there's danger in the future, I'll definitely protect you first." The crystal chandelier in the living room was still on, casting dappled light on his shoulder. Just like the cruise party that day. The light was just as blinding when I watched him lift Riley onto the lifeboat while I stood in my soaked gown. "When I come back," he twirled the ends of my soft hair, "I'll take you to the Maldives to relax, The 30-day divorce cooling-off period passed faster than imagined. During these 30 days, Michael began frequently sharing sunsets in Berlin, coffee in meeting rooms, even pigeons outside his hotel window. It was ironic. In 7 years of marriage, he had never reported his schedule so actively. At first, I would reply, "Divorce application submitted. Please do not contact." But he just continued sending new landscape photos, as if those legal documents were just props for my tantrum. Later, I learned to read without replying, until late one night he sent a night view of the Brandenburg Gate, "Your favorite architectural style." Initially, I would reply with a period, later just the system's default smiling face emoji. He, on the other hand, could actually interpret, "She's in a good mood today," smiling very standardly, from a generic emoji, and continue sending 9-grid photos of potted plants in the meeting room. The day the divorce certificate arrived, I opened it with my parents. "Mom, do you think I'm too impulsive?" Mom shoved a glass of overflowing champagne into my hand. Impulsive? My daughter endured for 3 years before divorcing. She's simply too enduring. Dad wiped his glasses and added quietly, "Should have divorced after the cruise incident." They even booked me a flight to Switzerland for a vacation, saying it was to celebrate me starting a new life. Dad silently pushed my suitcase out of the guest room. Resignation procedures are all done. Just take the gap between jobs to relax. As the plane broke through the clouds, the city that held 7 years of marriage shrank rapidly outside the porthole. I suddenly realized that the pain of severing roots comes so late. I deleted all social accounts that could be linked to the past. My new WeChat only added Jessica and my diving instructor. The day I learned free diving in Santorini, Jessica's international call poured into the receiver, along with the Aegean wind. Autumn. Michael signed for the divorce certificate sent by the court this morning. Now he's using all his connections to search the world for you. I was stunned. What do you mean? It seems he rushed to your parents' house the day he signed for the document. After finding out you went abroad, he actually took Riley to some merger celebration banquet. Jessica spoke quickly. You cut off contact so you might not have seen it. Riley's posts those few days were all, "Thank you, Senior, for the guidance." Unforgettable work memories, with Michael's profile in every 9-grid photo. Then this morning, the lawyer told him the divorce certificate was officially effective. Only then did he discover you even resigned as a partner at the firm. Now he's looking for you like crazy, even going to my parents' place. He was in bad shape when he knocked on my door last night. Tie askew, eyes full of bloodshot veins. He asked me why you were so heartless. I said, "Did you forget who you chose to save on the cruise?" Jessica paused for a moment. But looking at his reaction then, it seems he really realized how deeply that incident hurt you. He should be, not should be, he's already here. I hung up the phone and looked at the figure walking from the end of the hotel corridor. Michael was indeed in terrible shape. His shirt collar was loosely open, stubble spreading into a gray shadow on his jaw. The shoulder line that was always straight in court had collapsed. Twee ran. "Lynn, who is this?" My diving instructor packed up the gear bag. "Ex-husband." I continued checking the oxygen tank pressure gauge. "Coach, we should go." Passing by him, he suddenly grabbed my diving watch, the metal strap digging deep into my skin. Autumn. My reserved deep-sea window is only 40 minutes. I unbuckled the watch with my other hand. Don't delay important matters. It was dusk when I returned from the dive. He was still standing at the end of the pier, the sea breeze messing up his bangs. "Need me to stay?" The instructor frowned at his red eyes. "It's okay, just follow-up issues with property division." I patted the instructor's shoulder. "See you at the dive spot tomorrow." Finally took him to a beer house converted from a port warehouse. The innermost seat with tangled fishing nets and floats piled behind. "I need an explanation." His voice was as hoarse as if ground by sandpaper. "The divorce certificate is the explanation." He stared at me, something shattering in his eyes. Just because I chose to save her first that day? You can understand it that way. Do you know what you destroyed? Who fought side by side in the firm back then? Who agreed to climb to the top of the industry together? He suddenly raised his voice, making the glass on the table tremble slightly. "Autumn, what do 7 years of feelings mean to you?" "Mean what?" So ironic. I met his gaze calmly. My longest investment mistake in life. "Since it's a mistake, do I need to submit an analysis report to you for cutting losses in time?" "Why do you have to be like this?" His fingers dug deep into his hair. "Because of that diving instructor? Or because you want revenge?" I laughed out loud. "Attorney Miller, you've been with Riley so long, even your gaslighting skills have become so proficient." Picking up my canvas bag to leave. "If you're here to collect emotional debt, I suggest you contact my lawyer. If you're here to perform regret..." I looked at the fishing lights gradually lighting up outside the window. The audience has dispersed. My wrist was grabbed by him again, this time so hard it almost crushed the bone. His whole shoulder was trembling. 7 years. 7 whole years. When he looked up, I actually saw tears in the eyes of this man who never lost composure in court. "Just because of that fall into the water, you sentenced me to death? You actually wanted to get rid of me long ago, didn't you? Had enough of me long ago, right? Autumn, what is your heart made of?" "Do you know, those 30 days in Berlin, I planned how to win you back every night. I thought after the cooling-off period ends, I'd take you to make up for the anniversary, add your name back to the property deed, even ask someone to buy that island vacation house you liked most. Even taking Riley to the celebration banquet was because her father was a key person in the project. Do you know what I was doing the days you canceled your phone number?" His voice suddenly choked. "I was picking out a remarriage ring for you. I prepared all the rituals for a fresh start like a madman. But you, seeing me like this..." He violently pressed my left hand to his heart. "Are you happy?" I looked at him quietly. Anger, pain, and a kind of earth-shattering bewilderment. When I sat back opposite him, the plastic chair scraped harshly against the concrete floor. "Michael, do you know why I signed up for a freediving course as soon as I got the divorce certificate?" His pupils contracted sharply. "The afternoon I got the divorce certificate, I went to the club where we first dived." My voice was calm, as if stating someone else's business. "The coach said my breath-holding time has recovered to 3 minutes, enough to dive to the coral reef area." Michael's breathing began to quicken. "But I stood on the entry platform and couldn't jump for a full 40 minutes. Guess why?" I slowly rolled up my sleeve, revealing a new scar on my wrist. Because every time the water covered my ankles, I would remember the force with which you pushed me that night. "It wasn't a push. I was trying to pull you..." "Pull me?" I suddenly laughed. Attorney Miller, do you need me to help you recall the angle of the surveillance video? Your left hand held Riley's life jacket. Your right elbow hit my collarbone. He slumped back into the chair as if all strength had been drained. When the ambulance boat came, how I wished you could look back once. I rolled my sleeve back down, even just to check if I had sunk. When you called that night, I was at the hospital getting stitches. Remember how you answered when my parents asked if I was injured? Michael's face lost all color. You said. I mimicked his light tone at the time. It's fine. Just twisted it while pulling Riley up, already iced it. Autumn? I didn't know you were injured. If I knew. You indeed didn't know. I stood up, my shadow covering his trembling shoulders. Because the next morning, when I was getting my stitches removed, you were eating soy milk and fried dough sticks with her at a breakfast shop. The photo taken by the shop assistant is still on the homepage of the review site, Dot. I shook my head and actually laughed. Do you know what's most ironic? I didn't panic when holding my breath to the limit at the bottom of the sea. I wasn't afraid when swept away by the undercurrent. But after being pulled up by the rescue boat, seeing the message you sent, Michael's fingers dug deep into his palm. You said Riley was terrified. I'm taking her back to the hotel first. I looked at the fishing lights outside the window. At that time, I suddenly remembered, the day we got our license, your car broke down on the Cross-Sea Bridge, how you ran 3 kilometers in the heavy rain to deliver the ring to me. At that time, you were soaked through, but protected the ring box in your arms and said to me, my voice began to tremble, Autumn, from today on, your emergency contact for everything will be me. He abruptly turned his face away, his Adam's apple rolling violently. For the past 2 years, I've always been modifying my bottom line, do you know? Every time you stood me up for her, every time you said she just needs help, every time I saw her wearing the shirt I gave you, I took a deep breath. I told myself it's me not being generous enough, me thinking too much, me not understanding your sense of responsibility as a lawyer. But when I signed the critical illness notice in the hospital and the nurse asked, "Where's the family?" I raised my hand to wipe the moisture from the corner of my eye. I suddenly understood. You didn't fail to distinguish importance, you just ranked me behind all responsibilities. Michael froze completely in his seat. So, that 30-day divorce cooling-off period, you were waiting for my explanation? I waited. I gently rotated the faint mark left by the missing wedding ring on my ring finger. Waited until the 15th day, when news of you accompanying her to a charity gala hit the headlines. The title was written so well. Attorney Miller appears with confidant, suspected new romance after marriage change. That was for PR needs. Her father... Michael, I interrupted him calmly. Even now, you think the problem lies with Riley. He opened his mouth but couldn't make a sound. There was never a third party between us. I stood up, my canvas bag strap knocking over the glass in front of him. Only you, time and time again, chose everyone but me. It's all over. I gently pushed away his trembling hand. The answer you want now, I've already given. I don't love her, never have. His voice carried a hoarseness on the verge of collapse. I took care of her only out of guilt. Her father got into that car accident helping me collect evidence. If I really had any feelings for her, why would I hide the wedding ring in the deepest part of the safe? Trust me once. Just once. He tried to hold my hand again, his palm full of cold sweat. Only guilt? I pushed away the cup in front of me. Michael, you were just relying on my love for you, enjoying the vanity of being wholeheartedly depended upon. Don't say you couldn't see the admiration in her eyes. As the iced coffee slid down my throat, I remembered the doctor saying, wounds always itch when healing. Actually, it's okay. You're just not used to losing someone who always waits for you to look back. I looked at the sunset sinking into the sea level outside the window. Just like I thought I couldn't leave you, but look, now I can hold my breath underwater for 3 minutes. I can't do it! He slammed his fist onto the table, cracking the glass. 7 years! Autumn, 7 years is not 7 days. Tears fell onto the crack, blooming into dark circles. I don't want a divorce. I'll change. I'll change everything. His knuckles turned white, gripping my sleeve. We'll re-notarize assets. I'll give you all the firm's shares. I promise never to see her again. Watching this man, who used to be flawless in court, cry like a child, a slight sting did pass through my chest. Like the moment the last stitch leaves the flesh when removing sutures. He said he planned our beautiful future, didn't I? He didn't know that in the 3rd year of our marriage, I set up a secret folder in the law firm's system. It contained information on all cities suitable for establishing branch offices, rankings of bilingual schools, even blueprints of the island vacation house he occasionally mentioned. That was a surprise escape I prepared for our 7th wedding anniversary, leaving the family responsibilities that suffocated him to open a small law firm by the sea that only took pro bono cases. But now, the modification dates of those PDF files stopped forever. At the early morning, he didn't return home for Riley for the first time. Michael, you should go back. I watched the sea level completely swallow the last ray of skylight. We can't go back anymore. Michael didn't leave this small town. Every morning he appeared at the dive shop pier, wearing an inappropriate suit, watching me check gear and prepare for dives. In the evening, he stubbornly waited at the end of the pier, soaked through, watching the instructor help me remove the tank. He would remember the brand of electrolyte drink I wanted after surfacing, clumsily learned to desalinate the wetsuit, even got a sign language book from somewhere, because he discovered the instructor and I communicated underwater with gestures. He did these things as a matter of course, as if we were still the couple who massaged each other's shoulders after overtime at the firm. But every time I would bypass the towel he offered and take the one from the instructor. This became his one-man mime show. "Is that gentleman your husband?" the guest house landlady asked me quietly one day. Ex-husband. Oh my God, she crossed herself. Such a handsome and devoted man, you're actually willing to let go? If I were 20 years younger? He persisted like this for 3 weeks, until his mother's overseas call rang one early morning, the anxiety in her voice piercing the receiver. Autumn. Michael pushed all cases, missed the partners' meeting 3 times. I know you are divorcing, but consider it Auntie begging you. Persuade him to come back and handle the handover, okay? Outside the window, Michael stood in the thin mist, trying for the nth time to prune that bush of edelweiss on the porch with hands red from cold. When I pushed open the wooden door, the light that suddenly lit up in his eyes was exactly like the celebratory fireworks the night we won our first transnational lawsuit. Does Miss Autumn want a croissant or sourdough today? He shook the paper bag in his hand, water droplets dripping from his hair into his shirt collar, the result of walking 4 kilometers to the only open bakery. Michael. I looked at the winding snow mountain road behind him. You should go back. His fingers loosened, the paper bag falling into the snow, rolling out the still steaming almond croissant. But 3 days later, he boarded the return flight, because a major flaw appeared in the firm's biggest transnational merger case. The opposing legal team dug up procedural flaws when Riley's father collected evidence back then, and the whole case faced collapse. 2 days later, I received a call from my father from home. Autumn, you might have to come back. What happened? The Miller family. Father paused rarely. Michael refuses to appear in court for defense, insisting on waiting until his personal affairs are settled. The opposition is pressing the advantage, and now partners of Miller Law Firm are selling shares. He lowered his voice. I know you're divorced, but Uncle Miller worked hard for your grandfather's case back then. Come back and persuade that kid. Don't let the ancestral foundation be lost. So I changed my ticket to the nearest flight back home. When Auntie Miller saw me at the airport, her eyes were red. Autumn! Michael has locked himself in the archives for 3 days, even tore up his lawyer's license. What exactly happened between you? I shook my head. Auntie, let me go see him first. But when I pushed open the door to the archives, I saw Riley half kneeling amidst the mess on the floor, piecing together torn scraps of paper bit by bit. Get out! Who let you in? Michael's voice was hoarse and broken, carrying the tremor before porcelain shatters. Didn't I say, without my permission, you can't step into this archive room? Secretary Wang asked me to come. She was afraid something would happen to you. Riley's voice was still soft, but carried unmistakable stubbornness. You can disregard yourself, but think about those who truly care about you. A dull thud, seemingly a file folder hitting the wall. I said, get out! Do you not understand human language? I won't go. She raised her head, tears in her eyes, but her posture unusually resolute. I'm not as cruel as Miss Autumn. I can't watch you destroy yourself. Her voice trembled slightly, but every word was clear. However long you don't eat or drink, I'll stay with you. You don't work, I'll stop everything I'm doing too. Senior, if you don't cherish yourself, someone else will ache for you. My life or death has nothing to do with you. However, the next second, waves suddenly rose in Michael's dead-water eyes. He saw me standing at the door. Autumn. He almost stumbled getting up, knocking over the stacked files beside him. You're back? When? Just arrived. My voice was calm and waveless. If I'm interrupting, I can leave. What are you saying? His eyes quickly became bloodshot as he stumbled past the mess on the floor towards me. I knew you wouldn't. Michael, I interrupted him, glancing at the documents on the floor that had been violently torn and then carefully pieced together. You look really ugly right now. Sit down first, listen to me. He pulled me into the archives almost roughly, as if Riley was just an insignificant speck of dust on the wall. I've thought it through. If we lose this case, we lose it. We can start over. Close the firm. We leave here together. Go anywhere. Riley suddenly spread her arms, blocking the door. Move! Michael's voice was cold as ice. How long will you remain obsessed? Tears burst from her eyes, but she stubbornly refused to wipe them. She's indifferent, selfish, only cares about herself. Where was she during your father's surgery? Where was she when you needed support most? She only drains you, dragging you from the clouds into the mud. Senior, wake up. You want to die. Veins popped on Michael's temple, but his raised hand was gently stopped by me in mid-air. Let her finish. My voice was so calm it surprised even me. Riley seemed encouraged, turning to me, a twisted sense of justice burning in her eyes. Do you really know him? Do you know he needs sleeping pills to sleep 3 or 4 hours a day? Do you know who stayed by his bed when he was hospitalized for gastric bleeding? He gave everything for you, and you. Besides enjoying his love, what have you done for him? I suddenly laughed. Autumn, don't listen to her nonsense. Michael tried to grab my hand again. I avoided his touch, my gaze landing on Riley's face written with sacrifice and devotion. So, you think you are the savior, right? I took a step forward, closer to her. You think he's a poor wretch deceived by a bad woman, and you are the only light? I shook my head gently, smile undiminished. Truly a match. One pities, the other needs saving. One pities, the other is stuck in the mire. You two, one skilled at performing fragility, one intoxicated with playing the hero, simply made for each other. I took another step forward, the archive door closing silently behind us. You ask what I've done for him. My gaze swept over the iced Americano in her hand, lips curling slightly. You make him a cup of coffee and think you're meticulous, so moved by yourself. Have you ever thought why, despite his fragile stomach, he only drinks beans of a specific roast and origin from this one shop? Riley froze. Because I traveled to coffee estates across 3 continents to personally select the bean variety for him. He has high stress, caffeine intolerance, yet can't do without this sip. I spent 2 years debugging curves with the roaster hundreds of times to find the balance point that refreshes without irritating his stomach acid. My voice was clear and cold in the closed archive room. You say you guarded his sickbed. Do you know for the first 3 days after every gastric bleed, what temperature and viscosity of rice milk he can only drink? Do you know how long the old injury on his back needs hot compress on rainy days, and which herbal pack to use? I watched the color drain from her face. You only see him invincible in court. But do you know when he first took cases independently, he was questioned into speechlessness by the opposing lawyer before the judge due to a flaw in the evidence chain, unable to appear in court normally for a whole month. It was me who simulated cross-examination with him over and over, writing every possible loophole on paper, tearing them up one by one, then rebuilding them with him one by one. I paused, the air left only with the smell of dry paper. I originally thought these things weren't worth mentioning, even less necessary to prove to an outsider. My gaze fell on her trembling fingers. But this posture of true love supreme you put on is truly nauseating. Even though Michael and I are divorced, it's not up to you, someone who can't even figure out his caffeine metabolism type, to question my investment in this marriage. Riley seemed drained of strength, lips moving but making no sound. "Get out, Riley." Michael's voice came from behind, low and tired. "Don't make me say it a second time." "What about me?" She slumped to the ground, looking up at him unwillingly, face covered in tears. "What I've done all these years, is it worthless? Do you really not have even a little bit—" "No." He interrupted her, every word quenched in ice. If I had known the so-called responsibility and care would make me lose her, I would rather have lost that lawsuit back then. He turned away, no longer looking at her. "Now, get out." She collapsed on the carpet, finally wiping her tears and rushing out of the archives. Crash! As Riley rushed out, she knocked over the metal file rack by the door. The dark blue mug on top fell in response, shattering into pieces. That was the cup Michael used for 7 years, with the faded letters M&A 2016 printed on the side. His pupils contracted, rushing over almost instinctively, but froze abruptly when his fingertips touched the largest ceramic shard. Inside the shard, a line of tiny but still clear words was fired with special glaze. "First year, happy anniversary. May every future victory be shared with you." His breathing stopped, trembling hand pushing aside other shards. Second piece, near the handle. Third year. Stomach still hurt? New prescription in the third drawer on the left. Third piece, on the curve of the bottom. Fifth year. You won that impossible case today. See, I told you, my great lawyer is omnipotent. Fourth piece, fifth piece. Each piece hid a message for the future. I never spoke aloud, fired into different layers of the cup according to the year. Those were secrets that could only be faintly seen when facing light at a specific angle during daily use. I originally planned to point these out to him one by one on our 10th wedding anniversary. Under the glaze of the 6th year, hid a bump only detectable by touch. "Found a white hair this morning. Mr. Michael, if I grow old and faded, will your gaze still stay for me?" The last piece, also the smallest, embedded in the core curve of the bottom, the writing almost worn away. 7th year. If one day you see this, it means we've finished the first 7-year itch. So, Mr. Michael, interested in signing an infinite renewal contract with me? His shoulders began to tremble violently, suppressed whimpers spilling from deep in his throat, like a child who lost his most precious gift. Remaking that cup. How long will it take? He raised his red eyes, voice broken. 1 year? 2 years? I'll wait, okay? I don't want the firm. I'll push all cases. I slowly squatted down, level with his gaze. Michael, do you remember in Iceland you asked me why I suddenly learned free diving? He froze. I didn't learn it to leave you. I picked up a ceramic piece with third year printed on it by my foot. It was so that after leaving you, I could still be a complete autumn. I looked out the window, the city night view flowing with light and color. During the 30-day divorce cooling off period, I discovered that eating alone means not accommodating anyone's taste, that weekends can belong completely to myself. The pain is real, but the relief is also real. I turned my head, looking into his tear-filled eyes. I wanted to try a different life, so I chose divorce, not because you weren't good enough, nor because of Riley's existence. I paused, simply because that road with only the two of us, I don't want to walk anymore. The blood drained instantly from his face. No. Without you, my life has no meaning. He grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. 13 years, 7 years. All my plans included you. How could I possible? Yes, all plans. But plans can't keep up with changes. Promises can't beat time. That late night, he finally curled up amidst the ceramic shards and messy files on the floor, crying like a lost person. Perhaps he finally understood with what absolute resolve the girl who once treated him as her whole world personally dismantled this city, built together over 7 years. And the sky outside the city is actually very vast. I took over the public legal aid fund established by my grandfather years ago, transforming it into a public interest law firm focused on women's and children's rights. The Nordic aurora is beautiful, but those helpless eyes in court need light more. Michael eventually stabilized the firm, winning that merger case with a series of beautiful counterattacks. In financial news, he became that impeccable attorney Miller again. But he pushed all overseas merger cases to partners, appearing in the old district where my law firm was located every month, sometimes buying cigarettes at the convenience store across the street, sometimes sitting on the bench at the end of our mediation room corridor. He came every month, naturally seeing the light burning in my eyes, colder than the aurora, when I fought for rights for women suffering domestic violence in the mediation room. Only the source of that light had long changed from the identity of Mrs. Miller to the lawyer badge on my chest. I knew he was still waiting for a reverse judgment in legal terms, but in my world there were new comrades, senior social workers sent by the Women's Federation, like-minded young public interest lawyers, and that sign language interpreter girl who could always translate obscure legal provisions into plain language. Every time Michael met them rushing past with case files in the corridor, his fingers would unconsciously tighten, as if gripping an authorization letter that had long expired. But he lost the status of co-agent. He would still send some latest judicial interpretations or typical cases to my work email, and my reply forever stopped at the professional, "Received with thanks, appreciate sharing." I knew a judgment that had taken effect had no retrial procedure, so even supplementary opinions shouldn't be submitted. The day I successfully helped a woman suffering long-term abuse win custody of her child, I received a message from Jessica. Riley was transferred to the procuratorate for suspected forgery of evidence. When she was just disbarred, she hinted in former classmate groups that it was because someone was jealous of her relationship with attorney Miller and set traps. Jessica's voice on the phone carried irony. You know Michael's fame in the legal circle. She did appear with him on several public occasions, so some people actually believed it. Later, I don't know who leaked the airport surveillance from the day your divorce certificate took effect, the clip clearly showing Michael shaking off her hand. Michael personally sent lawyers' letters to several self-media outlets that spread it most widely, with only one demand: public apology, clarifying he never had any relationship with Riley outside of work. This made a big noise in the circle. Riley had no way out. Probably wanting to prove herself too much, she privately took a high-risk evidence collection commission, used irregular methods, and was reported by the client. I flipped through the newly received case file. She didn't enter the law firm through regular channels anyway. Her foundation was weak. Once she lost protection, going astray was just a matter of time. I had heard some of this from Auntie Miller, too. Riley's mother had gone to the law firm crying and begging, shouting, "Attorney Miller can't be so heartless," while being escorted out by security. But the Miller family showed no mercy this time, directly sending a lawyer's letter warning against defamation. Jessica continued, "At last month's Bar Association annual cocktail party, Michael came too. Not seeing you, he was distracted all night. But he doesn't look like an ace lawyer at all anymore. Lost so much weight, suit hanging empty on him. Sigh, thinking back now when he was by your side before, his whole person was glowing." When the short summer of the Arctic Circle ended, I saw Michael at the preparatory meeting for the public interest law firm. He stood at the door, figure so thin it seemed the corridor wind could blow through him. I was stunned for a moment before recognizing him. "Gastric bleeding, just discharged." He smiled at me. "By the way, the roasting curves and data for debugging coffee beans before, I saved them in the cloud drive." I pushed over a sticky note with account and password. Password is the last 6 digits of your passport. He stared at that note, Adam's apple rolling. "This is what I deserve." The public legal consultation window at the new law firm site. I handed over a cooperation intention letter. "If Miller Firm is willing to provide some professional support, we welcome it. After all, a quality partner." "You are leaving?" His voice was very light. I organized the files in my hand. "Going to Qinghai next week, a legal aid project for women in pastoral areas." "Can I still send you case references in the future?" I looked up and smiled at him. "Attorney Miller," I said, "there should be more important emails in your inbox." With this year of watching from afar, he should have seen clearly that once some boundaries are drawn, they are more distinct than national borders. But he just shook his head, carefully folded those 2 documents, and put them into his inner suit pocket. "Safe travels." He stood in place, voice scattering in the corridor wind. I turned and left holding the files. Outside the window, the city began to light up with evening lamps. Warm yellow spots of light spread one after another, as if someone overturned a honeypot on the deep blue sky curtain. Suddenly remembered, one overtime night long ago, I also lay by the window of the law firm office, pointing at the myriad lights downstairs and saying to him, "Look, when we win the lawsuit later, we'll buy the brightest one for home." And what he said was, "No need to buy. Wherever you are, that place is the brightest." The lights outside the window today are much vaster than that patch back then, and I am finally going alone to light up a vaster night belonging to others. Who says such light isn't moving?